Okay, I'll call to order the City of Indio and Indio Water Authority joint study session to the City of Indio. My name is William McFerman. I'm the mayor of the city. I'll be chairing this study session. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Holmes.
Present.
Councilmember Miller.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Present.
And Mayor Furman.
Present.
And we have Councilmember Ramos Amit absent today.
All righty. If I could ask everyone to stand for the pledge. If I could ask our city manager to lead us in the pledge. All right.
Place your hand over your heart. Again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Right. Thank you. All right. Next item is item number 3, and that's public comment for our study session. Do we have anyone online? No? Okay, well, we do have one present, Mr. Dick Kumsky. Is that correct?
Good afternoon. I met last night with I believe it's the City Development Committee to discuss the need for more pickleball courts in the city of Indio. It's a ever-growing sport. In fact, I don't know if you know it, but it's the fastest growing sport in North America, which does include Canada. We get quite a few Canadians come down here during the peak season, and they just love the sport, and it's growing. I have been involved in it for about 7 years. I live in Indian Palms Country Club. We had no courts there 7 years ago, and we had a handful of people that played. We have 8 permanent courts now, where we've converted 2 tennis courts into 4 courts each. So we have 8 permanent courts, and we have probably 50 people playing there. I don't know if any of you do play or have gone over to La Quinta to the Fritz Burns Park. Fritz Burns Park has 8 courts also, but there are probably 100 people waiting to get on those 8 courts. So there's quite a wait. So the need is there. And I know that the city of Indio has some things in the works, and I just want to find out how we bring those up so we can get this moving in that direction, both indoor and outdoor. I think you have a sports center that's going to be developed soon too. And indoor courts would be great, because the summers out here, it's pretty hot, even though we do play every week all year long at Indian Palms. We'll start at 7:30 in the morning and finish at about 10:30. And it's about 110 degrees in the summer when we're playing there. So some indoor courts would be greatly appreciated also. But there is a real need for some outdoor courts. So that's why I'm here. I am a representative of USA Pickleball, which part of my responsibility is to develop the sport and help develop places to play. So if you have any questions of me while I'm here, I'd be happy to answer them. But I'd really like to see what we need to do to move this forward.
Yeah, great. I don't know what's public comment, but
I agree with you. I play pickleball, so I played at PDR.
Oh, you do? Yeah, the resort.
Yeah, I played
the resorter.
So I've quite a bit. And I was just about to bring this up during our study session. Was that George Patton Park has an old tennis court there that has been used many times, and was thinking about putting some money into that to convert it over on the top side into four pickleball courts. I agree with you. It's something that the city needs to do. It is a very fast growing sport. And I get dinged a lot as a city council member here in the city of Indio playing at Fritz Burns Park or Freedom Park, because you go where the people are to play. And I can play obviously at my place, Heritage Palms, and I played at other places. But when you want to actually go to a game, you need to go to where the people are. And so I think that everybody agrees with that. I've been banging on the pickleball thing for a couple of years now. So I'm sure you'll get some support from us where it ends up and at a park. But George Patton Park would be a perfect location, because it's not being utilized now. And it'd be a great place on the north side to be able to put some 4 pickleball courts in and let them do it. And as you know, you converted 1 court into 4.
Yep. That's the easiest way to convert unused tennis courts. And you already got the surface. You just have to resurface them and put the nets up and line them, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But the nice part about the sport too, the beauty is it's played by young and old alike. Myself, I didn't know what it was 7 years ago, and I couldn't run the tennis courts anymore. I mean, your legs, your knees go, all the things that you use all your life. But pickleball, you play doubles, you can move around, you get a good exercise. It's a great sport. So yeah, anything we can do to help USA Pickleball, I have resources. I'll be happy to, meet or help in any way possible, guys. Okay.
Mayor, do you recall what it costs to convert those tennis courts?
I don't. And everyone's going to be a little different because if you have a good surface, really, you just have to take the lines off and maybe, paint and resurface it. But if there are cracks and if it has to be redone in some way to get it to a consistent surface, there'd be more cost involved. But I would say, if you had to go build one from scratch, I've heard the price from, just pouring and getting everything done in the fencing around 50 grand. But if you're converting current tennis courts to pickleball courts, I wouldn't think it would be that much, because I don't know if you know this, but Indian Wells hosts the national pickleball tournament in November every year. And they convert the tennis courts there to 49 pickleball courts for that event. And then they have to convert them back to tennis for the Parabellum Open. So, that's an undertaking of a large proportion. So it can't be too costly to convert those existing courts and then convert them back. But I don't know the exact cost for each one. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you. I see it's on our topic of discussion for later on, and we appreciate you coming and giving your insight on it.
All right.
We have a lot of supporters of pickleball, and in the meantime, I don't know if you in contact with Jim Curtis. He'd
Yes.
be a good guy to talk to about this. So he's in charge of our parks. And
Yep.
right now we're in the middle of working on all of our parks. So there's a couple of potential
Perfect time.
areas that I think we could use some pickleball courts. So hope you stick around for the discussion, and thanks for coming.
Good
Appreciate it.
timing. Okay. Thank you.
All righty. I don't have any other public comments. So we will move on to discussion items, which is 4.1, that's fiscal year 2022-23, city budget and capital project prioritization, and city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Assistant City Manager and Finance Director Rob Rockwell is going to do a quick recap of the study session that was held 2 weeks ago. I think that's a great foundational start for our discussion today. And certainly if there are questions now related to what was covered last week, this would be a good time to discuss. Rob?
Thank you, Brian. So just to go over a couple of the points we went over last time, as City Manager Brian Montgomery said, even though we're focusing on capital projects today, certainly this is also the opportunity for the City Council to ask any questions over the greater budget and all the details we went over last week. So Matthew, if you bring up the PowerPoint presentation, thank you. So this is still the plan. Hopefully today we'll finish our deliberations on the budget, and then we'll be able to set budget adoption for June 15th. The budget, as a reminder, is built on the foundation of our strategic plan, which includes public safety, business and job growth, community infrastructure, community beautification, as well as downtown and Highway 111 revitalization, festival events, arts and culture, outreach, communication and public participation, as well as sustainability. The Water Authority gave a presentation. They reported that they are recommending a $25.5 million operating budget. And then they had various capital projects. The majority was water capital program that was $2.6 million in the Water Authority. If you remember in the city budget, we talked about all the layers. You had the workbook that incorporated all of the various fund types. Overall, it was a $250 million operational plan. and capital plan. Those numbers that I provided you did not include $37.9 million in transfers out of the general fund and special revenue fund groups into the CIP fund. The budget that I bring to you in June will have those transfers within it. So the budget itself will be closer to $290 million. In fact, I assume after today, after you look at some of the capital projects and you add or you direct us to incorporate them into the budget, I'm sure that the budget that we will bring to you in June will be $300 million or slightly higher than that. Within the budget, there were some additional positions. There were 3 new facility maintenance workers, 1 record specialist, as well as some underfilling of some police positions to incorporate community service officers while we were recruiting to fill the sworn positions that are approved by you. Also, there's a salary savings of 5% of salary and benefits that's also incorporated into the budget. This is the savings that we expect while positions are vacant during recruiting processes. That's probably between $1.5 to $2 million in total. Also, at the end of the meeting on the 4th, we went through the CIP capital improvement project plan that included $95.7 million in projects. These are all projects that are funded and in the proposed budget. And that included $8.1 million worth of bridge projects, $15.6 million in street and road projects, $6.5 million in asphalt and miscellaneous repair projects, $24.3 million in interchange projects, $5.9 million in sidewalk repairs, $8.4 million in traffic signals, $15.3 million for park projects, $8 million for public facilities, and $3.6 million for various vehicle and equipment replacements. And those are all in the budget that was presented to you last week. So if there are no questions on what was provided to you prior, today's conversation is basically going to focus on about $22 million in additional general fund resources that we have available that we have not actually allocated for projects or included in the budget just yet. And I'll hand it back to Brian to go over those projects with you today.
Thank you. So if there are no other specific questions, this is I don't know if I'd call it a once in a lifetime opportunity, but we do know that there are a lot of funds available relative to the projects at hand. Mr. Rockwell just discussed $95 million worth of capital projects. There's approximately 22 more available. The discussion to lead up to this discussion, a decision or idea was launched to have a survey of the city council as well as the department directors to get some idea to help lead and guide the discussion today of a number of projects that have been, many in the past below the line, have been recently discussed through our strategic planning process. Some of them are projects that you have recommended at meetings or to me or to staff otherwise. And we provided a list of 50 projects. They total over $40 million. As Mr. Rockwell just indicated, we have about 22 available to allocate. Not that all of it has to be allocated now. You recognize and remember that each year we're required to do a mid-year budget review. So I think as an idea as we go into this discussion, if there's some indecision or some thought that perhaps we could wait until mid-year to allocate some of these funds, certainly fine. There are some projects that are high priority that I believe on this list should be above the line, and we should proceed now, but that's certainly your discussion direction. So based on the survey work, and I know this is small, and we'll pull up a spreadsheet that'll be a little more manageable, but just as an initial view, these were the highest scores for those, the city council scoring the projects that were listed. You see, for example, the top one is providing an additional $2 million of reserve funds to what we have now of about $15 million. And we'll go through those. The department directors also went through and provided some surveys, some results here that are very similar. And again, I'll get to a bigger spreadsheet. There's one, there it is. I know it's very small, but for the council that sees it there on your screen, the city council on the left side, the priorities, those that are starred match exactly what the department directors had indicated. There are some circled in red on the right side that the department directors thought were priorities that were not on the city council list. So if there are any specific questions on these, we could go to the spreadsheet and start talking about the projects, start talking about the priorities. What you see here, for example, the reserve, we have the church on Smir that there's turf there now, but the church, if it came down, then turf could be in its place, approximately $100,000. Some key acquisitions for the downtown corridor from Highway 111 and also from Indio Boulevard was a high priority. Initial funding for phase 2 of the sports park off of Jackson. This would assist us with a current grant application, the TCC grant application that we've discussed. Of course, the $2.5 million would not build all of phase 2, but it would be a match toward other funds that could help leverage the bigger grant as well as this phase 2. We have talked and have a draft program for a downtown facade program that could include signage. A similar program is also high on the priority list for Highway 111. It would not certainly handle all of the businesses in either location, but with the funding that's been proposed could make a significant impact. An item that wasn't on the department director list, but Miles Avenue Skate Park. These are, of course, cost estimates, but about $1 million for a skate park that could be located at Miles Avenue Park, the west side. Downtown Indio Holiday Lights and Tree. The ones that we have are just about at their useful life, end of their useful life, I should say. And so
My Christmas tree.
something that could be done, a tree that could be reused year in and year out would be a part of that. You recall that we've been working with the Desert Recreation District, reviewing the parks and seeing what parks they may want to take on from a maintenance and programming standpoint. We jointly identified some improvements that could be made prior to such a transition and contract, approximately $2 million available there. Throughout the community, various median landscape improvements to thicken up, replace perhaps damaged plants or dead plants and opportunities to improve the medians. No matter what we call it, this is a proposed name from an employee committee, but some sort of beautification program. We have some funds already through our sustainability efforts. This additional $50,000 could kick off the program with shirts and hats and materials for the schools to pass out. This Greenway Paseo project has been discussed primarily by our architect and working with the City Hall project and creating a walkway green space from City Hall towards the living room park. The multimodal project was another one that was not on the department director list, but some improvements made over at the potentially, and we hope for, train platform. We do have an unfunded retiree health program that there is some liability there and contributing to it. Scored high on the city council list, as did the Highway 111 median landscaping. This would be a significant investment from one end of the community to the next and making Highway 111 something much, much better than it is today with regard to its beautification and landscaping. There are some significant upgrades needed at the museum relative to electricity. It's essentially a complete rewiring of the facility. There were some other minor improvements for the museum. You see a little farther down, some HVAC and some insulation. The electrical renovations are certainly a higher priority. The downtown specific plan discussed the term diet for Oasis Boulevard from Highway 111 to Indio Boulevard. This would create a much more walkable, attractive corridor, much like Miles was done with the redevelopment between town and Smir some years ago. There's a small stretch on Avenue 48 that could use some replacement of some plantings. We have started doing some testing on perimeter walls around the community that many are graffiti blotched and in need of complete repainting. This funding would help us with some contract work, some in-house work to get that accomplished. Street signs, the mast arms, many of these are already faded and in need of replacement, but the new branding could be used there. Shade in the downtown is also something identified in the downtown plan. I mentioned the museum, a dog park at Miles Avenue Park. Also on the list, but not in the higher score, was a dog park at Monroe, off Monroe, the future park at that location. Gateway signage in the downtown. And then, as mentioned, some facade improvements on Highway 111. On the corner of Golf Center and 111, this is the southwest corner, there's just a blank patch of dirt. Some landscaping there could be a significant improvement. So interesting that was the list that City Council came up with. Again, perhaps identifying just a few things that on the right side, the Skarna building. So this is the department director list. This is the building. I think I mislabeled it on the survey, but it's the south or the northeast corner of Town and Miles. The front part, you recall, is a building that we cannot occupy. It's red tagged. If it came down and we put some turf or something there, it could prepare itself for future development. Not that it's unattractive, but it's a building that we can't utilize without significant improvements. So it is likely best to demo. So that was one I've circled because it was on the department director list, but not on the city council. Gateway monument signage. This was identified in our general plan where various entryways throughout the community would receive some treatment, welcoming folks into the community and could utilize our new branding. The commercial trash enclosure assistance. This is somewhat new, but we continue to receive complaints, whether it be homeless or other folks getting into the trash enclosures that are not locked, that there is no trash enclosure. We merely have these trash bins open and available throughout the community. If we required businesses over time to complete and build a trash enclosure that's locked and enclosed, if we provided some financial assistance in that process, that could be done. And then down at the bottom, this has been discussed. I think I was somewhat surprised that the Jefferson entry median, this is at Indio Boulevard coming off the I-10 off-ramp. It's a very long stretch of just dirt right now. It was not on the priority list through the survey of the council, but the staff saw that as critical. And then there's some other signage throughout the medians that is the older branding. And then this discussion, the financing that will take place for the public safety campus, City Hall, and the library. Much like when you go to buy a home, we could put more money down and it would reduce the debt somewhat. So that was a discussion with those funds. So I guess specific to any questions that you might have on these projects, and then I can pull up the full list because you may, as members of the council, may want to look at some of the other items that they were 50, and you see on the department director list, 25 were selected, right there or so, and a little bit more on the city council side. So Mayor, maybe just open up to questions about specific projects, and we'll look at the broader list. And again, study session, this will come back to you for final approval, but your guidance will help us prepare the budget document.
All righty, well, open up to council, just a study session. So if anyone wants to go ahead and start, ask questions, comments.
Okay, so is it the dog park, is it the skate park on Miles or the pickleball courts?
And in fact, Matt, could you pull up the larger spreadsheet that has all that? So pickleball courts was one of the 50 projects. It just didn't make these priorities. It'd be the other spreadsheet.
Okay, well, who didn't vote for it? Because I did.
Yeah, I did. But I think it's wise to convert as many of the tennis courts we have that are out of use before we build the other ones. And if we're going to build it, because it is a noise issue. So if we're going to do it, we'd put it next to the golf course or somewhere where people are used to it, where I play at PDR, which is Palm Desert Resort. We're right next to the golf course. It really doesn't bother me, but it does make a distinct sound. So you want to make sure it's not going to affect neighborhoods. Plus we have lights in there. So when the lights are on, it's not going to affect, you already have the lights from the golf course, but you'd have to make a corridor along the edge there so you could walk, because you'd use that long, if you use the long place where the maintenance was, you want to walk outside the courts. You don't want to walk through the courts because it affects people while they're playing. So you'd have an outdoor corridor that goes through and then you go into the court sideways. But if we could convert some courts, it'd save a lot of money and see what kind of use you're going to get and then kind of get a grasp for it. But I guarantee you, I talked to a lot of people that live in Indio that don't live at clubs that have courts, and they're going to Palm Desert Freedom Park or they're going to La Quinta, and they're not happy about it because, we're the largest city. So if we could convert it, see what kind of use we're getting, then gives us more of an advantage to do it. We do have a resurfacing. The one that does all the courts for the tennis stadium actually is an Indio business. It's a couple of young entrepreneurs that started a resurfacing business, and they're actually based out of Indio. So, we would be putting money back into the pockets of an Indio business and Indio resident by doing it if they were picked. But they do the tennis tournament. It's called Desert Resurfacing.
Interesting. Matt, could you click on the tab where city council average at the bottom, just so they see what, just jumping ahead, if you scroll down, you'll see pickleball courts. I believe it was $650,000 at the estimate. The thought there was near the golf course. So it'd be brand new construction. It wouldn't be renovation.
And I agree. I mean, I think it needs to be done. It is the fastest growing sport, and it is something that people do, and it's the perfect location. But right now, to be able to convert, I've seen the George's Patton Park one. It's just a desolate, tennis courts that you could convert into 4. It's got parking. But what it does is it brings life into it. If you look at the other ones like Fritz Burns, not only are the people playing pickleball, but they're eating out. They have their kids that don't play pickleball or kicking soccer balls on the other side. They have the park. It opens up the park to more people that were bringing their family while they're playing. So it's an opportunity to bring people into our parks. But I mean, all these, the only problem with this list we have, there just isn't enough money. So, there's going to be some priorities that we're going to have to set to be able to do it. But it is very good. I think a good opportunity.
So just thinking about the idea of maybe starting with the Patton Park resurfacing of the tennis courts, how much during the course of a given year, how many months in a year, given the summers we have here, will those pickleball courts be filled?
Every day.
Even in the middle of July and August?
They play every day.
They just play different times.
Okay.
Most people play early in the morning from 7:30 to 10. Sometimes you can't play early because you're at a country club and there's a noise ordinance. You can't start banging on balls until then. But then they come back because these have lights because they're actually tennis courts. Then they come back at 7:00 at night, play to 10:00, and then we cut it off because you have residents and other people and you don't want the noise going on. But it's a great opportunity. It's, like I said, it is the fastest growing sport. We should be able to have our residents be able to play it if you don't live at a country club. So it's a good opportunity, but I would say try it and convert a couple. You're probably talking with lights, because you might need to adjust a little bit, the bench and other stuff. It already has restrooms, maybe $150,000 to do it all, to make 4 courts out of it. Because I don't know how good of it's in shape wise, but you do need to put up a couple nets, couple fences and resurface it. And you want to clean it up. So when it opens up, it doesn't look like we just threw something in there. It looks like something we're proud of, something from then on we can maintain, like everything else that we do here. I'm happy to support any of the stuff that's here. It's all great, but I want to make sure we got the money set aside to maintain it too. I do not want to build mediums in the city in the middle of Highway 111. I know I'm getting off script a little bit, but not be able to maintain it where it looks worse than if we would have just left it alone. Then at least it looks tired and old instead of not being attended to. So, but yeah, about 150,000. And like I said, it'd be a local business.
Would Patton have a noise issue, do you think?
No, probably not. If you put the fence up right and you put the netting up, the wind shear, it blocks a lot of the sound and everything else. And I think a lot of people would be happy to see people in the parks again. It'll get more families in. At the same time, it'll open up people that probably don't want to be there with a lot of people and move them out to other areas. So.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't think any of us disagree that pickleball is a growing sport, but anything with this budget that's going to surround me is going to be surrounded the downtown area. So it will start at Miles Park, and I think Miles Park would be probably the ideal place for pickleball courts because you do have those other components that are coming in to the area. We do have the grass area. We have the downtown area. We have the museum there. I just think that the Miles Park would be the best place. Both locations are good. My thing is I want to put people where they're going to play, eat, stay, hang out, and I think downtown is a place where we're trying to get some people down there and occupy the area. So, I mean, I want to give the city manager and staff a great, attaboy for putting this together and taking the direction and bringing us something back really good to work with. Like Councilmember Miller said, there's a lot of great things on here. It takes a lot of money. But however, pickleball is one of those things that's going to attract people. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Also, in that area, we have the potential for a dog park or a skate park. So we can't put all of our eggs in one basket at the Miles Park, but I just want to start focusing on areas that need some attention and get some bodies there where, like I said, they could eat. We have some restaurants coming in. We got some entertainment coming in. So I like to see pickleball at the Miles Park. And we do have the space. We have the parking. And I like a dog park there. But, I'm willing to compromise if we start talking about locations and different activities. But I just think it would be wise to start focusing on that area. North of the freeway is going to grow. Patton Park's a nice park. I go there a lot. It's around the corner from my house. There are places to eat over there around the corner. There's places to, charge your Teslas if you have Teslas. Charging stations there. So it is actually a good location as well. But I'm just focusing on really downtown this go around.
So the question becomes, if we do, I see where you're going with Miles Avenue Park. So if we say, all right, we bring in pickleballs, because that brings in activity to Miles Avenue Park, no doubt about it, and energy. Then what? How do we replace it? What comes off the list? And I'm glad
I had
Miles Avenue Park because I can live without the dog park at Miles Avenue Park, but that's only half of the pickleball. I'm sorry.
I think Oscar was saying something. I can't see him,
I
but
apologize.
I heard him.
I didn't realize he was on. Hey, Oscar, I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. I do hear from the neighborhood. I live right next to Miles Park, so there is a great need for a dog park there. I mean, if you think of where is the closest dog park to the Miles Park area, and so we don't have anything nearby, right? And there's a lot of homes there, so there is the need there. And at the high school, I'm working at the high school. I do hear the kids needing the skate park there. So there is a high demand for the skate park as well. One question that I had for staff is that I noticed that they didn't prioritize the multimodal transportation center funding. And I wanted to ask if we could have some input on why that wasn't prioritized by the staff.
On that one, and there may be some of the other members of the team that can speak to it, but we don't know yet. The study is underway. RCTC's leading that, relative to the train platform and a potential commuter rail passage through there. So I think it's just a matter of timing. And what would we plugged in $1 million. I think that was something discussed by the council previously, but what would we do in the interim until we knew? Now, if the money were set aside for when that news comes and what we could do to improve the parking lot, some better landscaping, I believe it would need to be federally funded. Knowing what those platforms cost, it's probably several million.
Oh,
probably six to 10 million. So I think that would be something that just longer down the road, to answer your question. So maybe it's just a little early to set aside funds for it.
Okay. So maybe that's one of the areas where we could, substitute funding for the pickleball courts, possibly.
And it's a ways off too, isn't it? We've been talking about the transportation center, but the reality is, I think it's years off.
Yeah, and I think of a transportation center, I think we need to make a master plan on that, because if we're going to get the funding, I think we need to do it. We're going to have to partner with like Sunline and some other agencies. And I think it's a great place and to put affordable housing there. We talked about it before. There was a couple places that they sought, before to be able to put affordable housing. And I thought because it's next to the railroad tracks, that it would be undesirable. Yeah. But from other people that have put it in that area, there's a way to put it so that it does. And because of the funding from the federal government, by utilizing the transportation center at the same time, there's money for that housing. That's one of the reasons Coachella actually put their mobile station there, the multimodal transportation station there was because they got funding from the housing to be able to get housing there. So if that's the case and opportunity, then I think we need to look at that whole thing. We can't put one of the things I remember, and I think Wayman can answer this too, is we can't put the platform or anything or a real building there until the Federal Highway Authority gives us permission or Transportation Authority gives us permission, because then we're pre-setting where the platform and everything's going to go. So I think it has to be them giving us the green thumb to be able to do it anyways. But I think
sorry, go ahead.
Just one building there on that huge acre just isn't going to do it unless you have a park or something else you want to do. But then again, that's where it comes from us. If we need affordable housing, might be a great opportunity to partner with Sunline or somebody else to be able to put it there and get some grant funding.
I mean, you hit it ahead with that. I mean, when you start talking about transportation and affordability, that's when it opens us up for grants. And, I was a little shocked as well when we talk about housing near the train tracks. However, if you look at some of our metropolitan cities, Oakland, for instance, Jack London Square, those condos down there are not affordable, and they're right on the train tracks down there. So I think that's a perfect opportunity to have that discussion for the future as far as housing or some kind of subsidized or special housing, and that opened us up to work with partners and grants and other stakeholders with that. So I don't see that happening in the near future. I mean, now, but in the future, I do. Yeah.
And if we're going to do the dog park and the other park stuff, I'm good with that at Miles Avenue, as long as it's put in the right proper locations where it doesn't interfere with what we plan to do with the rest of it, because we still haven't figured out what we're going to do with the burger building. That an opportunity. So just don't want it to squeeze in there, but I do believe that. And I don't think pickleball's a bad problem, but so that's something I think we need to look at. If it's a larger project, I'm good with the dog park and also any other stuff. Yeah. And as we're talking about it, I think we do need to invest in our history museum too.
Yeah.
It's our building.
The whole.
So we might as well just put that in there. And then the economic uncertainty and the reserves, absolutely. We need to put as much money away right now as we can to make sure that if we get into a pickle with finances, that we can continue to keep our staff on board and also be able to afford what we need to afford. And the more money we can sock away now, the better off we're going to be later on.
I think that's number one. I think we all feel that way. But Mayor, if we can go back to the multimodal transportation center and see, because that felt to me like it's such a long way off, and having an active park area with a skate park and pickleball and dog park and whatnot, I think might be a more immediate benefit.
Yeah,
I agree. So if we were to make that substitution, we would still have the $350,000. Would we want to put that towards planning, some kind of planning for the multimodal station, or we would like to put that towards another object?
No, I think we'll be better off and be safer just to take that funding. There's been multiple studies and other things that's already taken place, but once that ball starts rolling downhill, we'll start seeing some more funding from other stakeholders. During that whole process with the temporary platform, we got a lot of funding that came in, and we had to actually give it back because we were unable to use it because of the festivals weren't here. However, it's still in the discussion at RCTC and other stakeholders. And but I just think now we would see a direct impact and actually support our economy, which is uncertain in the future, if we do start focusing on areas where we could generate some revenue. If people drive into Miles Park or get off the freeway and come north of the freeway to one of our other potential locations to play pickleball from another city, they're spending gas money. They're buying they're buying food. They're stopping to shop at one of our stores. They're going to Home Depot, and so I think we need to focus on things that's going to also help us generate revenue. And I think this right now is a machine as well as soccer. So
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to make sure we put Patton Park in there.
Yeah, I'll agree. I totally agree with that.
That court is just wasted sitting there. It's not used. It's dilapidated. It's an easy fix to put four courts in there and get 20, 30 people sitting in that park.
How do we? Well, maybe Jim knows it. I don't know specs on pickleball, but I'm not I'm not in opposition of going to Patton or Miles. I just like Miles because I want to focus on downtown, but
I'm talking
We can do both.
both.
Yeah, I
talking
think we can do
because
both.
that one's a low hanging fruit. It's going to clean that up and do it and get that court up to speed. And then, it's simple.
Probably a $200,000 just to be safe type of thing.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Oscar, you okay?
Yeah, well, so then 250,000 plus the 650, we'd still have what, 100,000?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And so would we want to put maybe the 50,000 towards the museum ceiling insulation or the access control system for the PD building? I don't know.
Yeah, that museum buildings is ours. I would support bringing that place up to speed because that's another thing that is bringing people to our downtown. There's weddings, there's events, there's all kinds of things. Yeah.
That's a connector. I like to move fast on that electric upgrade of that building because that's something that we don't want to lose.
And the HVAC too, because that's what protects.
But those are already above the line. I'm looking at the
very delicate stuff.
Sorry, those are already above the line. So I'm looking at things below the line that we could bring up in replacement of the multimodal transportation center. So if we have the pickleball courts, if you're saying the 2 locations, we'd be at about $900,000, right?
Yeah.
And so we'd have $100,000 left. So I'm looking at maybe the museum ceiling insulation that's still below the line, or maybe the access control system for the PD building. That's $85,000. That's still below the line as well.
Those are good ideas. I have a question because I know demoing the Scarna building is on the list for the department directors.
Well, what do we do with it once we demo that front part?
But every place in this valley is talking about mid-century modern buildings, and we have them, and we're tearing them all down.
Oh,
I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth, but I do want to ask that question. If the decision is, it needs to come, it's too much money to retrofit, I'll be happy to buy into that. But I just wanted to ask because that is a cool building with that overhang and that shade structure. I mean, it kind of epitomizes what Palm Springs is trying to create.
Yeah, the last estimate is about 10 years old, is like $1.5 million to retrofit. With the things going on downtown over the next handful of months, the hope would be perhaps someone would come in, but would they ever spend, let's call it $2 million to renovate that building? It's possible. If it were vacant, they could build something smaller to spec that would look nice and old. And if that's $800,000.
We got a lot of buildings we've torn down. They're still empty. Yeah. I mean, that are going to be empty for lots. They're going to be empty for a long time. I just don't know, tearing that down, at least it looks good until we got something. And then what do you do with it? Like I said, you still got that back building. Now you got that one area torn down next to the other, like gap signs, all that other stuff. What do you do with all that? But I mean, this building behind us was supposed to be torn down too. We moved everybody out of the senior center and we took everything out. And full of people now. So I don't know. I gotta wonder about this earthquake stuff personally, my personal opinion.
So we're talking about just those storefronts, not the entire building where we have our storage.
There are actually 3 buildings in a row there. The one that's up front, there's another one, and then the last one that has the mural on it. I'm told the last one with the mural is in sound shape. The other 2 are not. So the idea would be to take down the rest. It would leave a hole, to your point. That's where grass or something in the interim. But can we wait and see and perhaps market it more heavily with the other things going on? Will maybe we would need to participate. It's our building to help encourage someone to do all those renovations, but then it would remain. That's another option.
Yeah. I'm not against it. It's just, I think it puts a hole in where our downtown is when we're in the middle of renovating all this other stuff, unless we have a real plan for it. Grass could look good. I think it's just going to look funky because it's going to look like we took that strip out and it's just kind of sitting there.
I think, as much as I do want to purge some of our older properties and get somebody in there, I think we should wait on that one. The reality is if we put grass there, we might get some folks hanging out that we don't want right now. And I think with activity and development that we have going on downtown. I think somebody's going to come along and look at that building, if not purchase it now or even in the future. We have things in our agenda today and in the future for downtown, and I think it's going to make it even more desirable for folks to come downtown. So I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what those buildings look like. And you say a couple million maybe in the future to tear down, but I'd rather wait on that than spending the money on it now.
Then if I can make a suggestion for any building in the city, you know, when you look in other cities, right? You have an empty building, you don't store stuff in the window, you make it look nice, you dress it up.
Yes.
I think that's one area that we could, you know, be a little stronger on, is dressing up the windows of our, and not just putting, because we shouldn't be covering the entire window anyways, you know, decals on the window, but dressing that window up in some form or fashion to make them look nice, you know, appealing.
I mean, I'm an optimistic person. I just think that in the near future, somebody's going to come and occupy those buildings. That's just the way I feel. What we're working on now, I think we did an excellent job of revitalizing in our downtown, and there's a lot of great things coming, and I think there's more. And I think that's a good potential location for a business to come in and grow. You know, or even come in and we assist them in removing the building and they build up. You know?
Yeah. I mean, if there's a plan for it. I mean, we're spending a couple $100,000 fixing the roof on the one. I mean, it doesn't take long to add things up. I mean, there could be more things wrong with it. We haven't looked. It could be the roof, could be electrical. I mean, it might not be salvageable, but until we have a cause, I hate to keep knocking things down unless we have somebody coming in, because we're going to be building things and knocking things down at the same time. And Wayman's right. I mean, what are we going to do with that little parcel there? And from what my calculations are, we should have an extra 150,000 instead of, because you got 200,000 for the one pickleball court, 650 for the other, and it's $1 million. So there's 150,000.
Yeah, I think
we don't have to spend it. I mean, we can set it aside and put it in our reserve and come up with the ideas that we need. I think that's better off than in what we're doing. But, you know, some of the things that are on here, I mean, like the museum and that didn't make it, but paying down stuff and trying to figure out where we're going to go from there. I would rather sit on some of this money and come back in 6 months when we have a better idea what we want to do than I would to try and come off a list. And we're doing this from the dais, which is never good in my opinion.
It's a good point. It's a study session. It guides us. What would you like us to start initiating now? I mean, there's plenty on our plate, but some of these, whether say it's the pickleball court and it appears there is a consensus, we can move forward with a design for the dog park and the pickleball park and get a pickleball court and get ourselves moving. But just as an idea, two things. One, it was the mayor pro tem that suggested it, but some of the leftover from taking the multimodal transportation out would lift the museum ceiling insulation above the line, and perhaps the PD access control. We're just barely off on those. But an idea is $2 million of additional reserve. If in the back of our minds, when a business comes forward, as the mayor suggests, in downtown, we know that we set an additional $2 aside, that we could do some things, some creative things with downtown, should the opportunity arise. You know, you've got that. That's beyond the $15 million budget or policy reserve. So that's one way to always know that that's there, available, should something come up.
And just this little off topic, but on our reserves at 15 million, I think it should go with our budget. To be honest, it should be a percentage of our budget. So if it goes up to, if our budget's 95 million, it should be, you know, 19 million or 17 million, you know. But I think we need to start looking at changing that, because our costs are going up. Our budget needs to go up. Our reserves need to go up at the same time. Was here when we had to lay people off. We had to cut people's salaries, and that's the last thing I want to do. I want to make sure we protect ourselves while we have the extra funding available to do it. So more money we can put aside is good for me. But I did see one thing on here I do think we need to look at, and said it might be in the budget, is that our banners too. And not the extension of the banners, but if you go to along Miles Avenue, about half the banners are missing, and the things from the heavy winds. How many of them got destroyed from the wind? I mean, on the Miles Bridge that comes through, 8 of them. They could have been taken during the concerts, but the brackets are gone on some of them. You know, we got to go back and do that. How much is that going to cost us to go back, put the brackets, put back if you really want to do it? It's things like that that look funny because we have 8 banners and you can see we're missing 6.
Yeah.
And it looks like we just either didn't care or don't do things. But how many more across the city are gone because of the 60-mile-an-hour winds that we got to go back and fix? So things like that is like things I want to make sure we're keeping up on too.
Yeah.
They were beautiful.
Yeah, on the banners, in the operational budget is approximately 90,000 to keep what we have maintained. So if there's some missing, there's money there to replace. This would be an addition. Maybe the team can speak to it because it's probably of note. I noticed on Indio Boulevard when I arrived some vacant, a lot of them, and we started putting some up, and they started blowing down. And the Public Works team said, Indio Boulevard, I know we have brackets up there, but they just won't last. So we probably need to take the brackets down.
Take the brackets down and put the connectors. I said that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But on Miles Avenue, there's 6 there, and across the city, I've noticed here, one there. So it's going to take somebody to go back. It might only be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. But if you want to keep them consistent and also make sure you have some spares, so as ones look bad or good, that we can replace them. So we're keeping up. Nothing looks better than a nice, tidy, neat things you have. Nothing looks worse than not maintaining something.
And go ahead.
No. I apologize, Mayor.
I want to just put this in your pocket, City Manager. I don't know if it's the perfect timing but I just got to put this out there. I was out in another city, and I'm very protective over Indio and our Indio residents, and I seen a banner of Hunter Lopez, one of our soldiers that we lost overseas, and that really cemented the fact that we don't have anything in our city, any monuments to really honor our veterans. And I know we did some things here locally, outside, but I think we need to visit the banner program for our veterans. I don't know where that would go. I don't know if Miles Park or part of the public safety campus. We do have that art piece from the 9/11 that we haven't really talked about. But I like to bring that to the forefront so we could really do something, not only for Hunter, but for our other veterans. We have a lot of history. Indio is 92 years old. Happy birthday, Indio, right? We're 92 years old. So there's a lot of veterans in our community. I think that need to be recognized, because if it wasn't for them, we know we wouldn't have these great liberties. So I don't know where that would fall. Maybe this is,
Yeah, I think that my experience is that partnering with the VFW, American Legion, to help with that, usually there are quite a few donations that come in. But if we wanted to scatter some or pick a corridor, Monroe or Miles, and just have veterans, or a park where they would be on the smaller poles, it's probably a $50,000 type of thing, particularly if brackets are needed, and then depending on how many donations come in. If we were partnering with somebody else that would help run that as a nonprofit and maybe a little fundraiser, that could work as well. But it's not above the line, but certainly could be if we adjusted.
I like it being part of the 9/11. I mean, let's make that 9/11 memorial something that really is meaningful.
And I just think that's also one of those parts of our city that'd be a destination with our artwork. We have such great art pieces in our community, and that, if we do something with that artwork and something we could recognize our veterans, our first responders, I think that'd be a great opportunity. We would have to look at costs and design and planning and that good stuff, but I think we could probably have a consensus that it's needed.
Maybe we can put it on the public safety campus when we knock some of it down, and put it in an area nearby there. So
the Arts Commission plan was to use that corner on South Jackson right there for that 9/11 memorial that we have. The issue of some banners around there certainly could be done downtown. They could be scattered throughout the community, or they could be, intermixed, the veteran banners, or they could be on a specific corridor. I guess that's something.
Or possibly, during 1 month or 2 months downtown on Miles or Miles Park. I know there's some different ordinance and things that we have to follow under different departments, but I just think that's a discussion we need to have.
Yeah, I understand from those that have been here a lot longer that downtown used to have flags every 4th of July, Memorial.
Yeah, we used to do
Yeah.
Christmas banners, and it's kind of
Mhm.
changed over a period of time because, costs and things like that. But yeah, we do. We should put Christmas banners up. We should have Memorial Day banners, 4th of July.
We should have flags. I mean, the flags
and
need to
just
go
swap
up.
out. I know it's a cost, but I mean, that's what's put into it. But I agree. And around the schools with some of the places and where I was grew up, the top 10 students, they put the picture of them on around the high school as the top 10
On banners.
and they got the banners, and then we took them down and they got to keep them, and we put up another banner. The family got to keep them. It was, that spurred the students to look at what they do. So there's all kinds of ways.
And I even think something like that. And I know we talked about this before, say downtown on certain months, maybe
Mhm.
May and June, we put our students up, our valedictorians from our different schools and our to recognize our students, and then on certain months have our veterans, because we all know if the kids' photo was up there, parents have to bring the kids to see them. They got to bring the family members. You got to come and eat. You got to come get some ice cream, and so I just think it's another opportunity to get people to a certain location.
And we'd want to allot enough funds, knowing that if it's that frequent of a up and down, there is some operational costs we'd want to set aside, to your point of making sure that we covered that. But these funds in a one-time way could be set aside that would guarantee us for the next 8 years, we have enough money to take these up and down, however it's determined. Is there some consensus on, if it's not the $100,000 of banner contribution, some sort of veteran or community-oriented banners beyond what we're doing now? We would just need to reallocate.
I'm good with that, as long as we
Totally.
continue to make sure we put their other banners back up. If Tim needs the funds to be able to do it, keep them rolling.
Yeah.
And to take some
This wind's killing us.
and to take some of those down or hack some off, whatever it is on Indio Boulevard,
Mhm.
is going to cost us some money to clean up as well. That $100,000 may be needed to try to do all that we're talking about to clean things up.
Okay. I'm good with that.
The Mayor Pro Tem chiming in on that. I think he was raising his hand.
So, are we not putting the museum ceiling insulation above the line then?
I'm good with that too.
Yeah.
But then do we have enough for all those?
I'm keeping track. I could be on the spreadsheet right now.
We can
but,
find it.
we would need to look and see at some of these others. For example, $1 million for the skate park, we can design to the budget. And if it were 900,000, and I would just design to what the budget you've allocated, and that would free up other money.
City manager, it's so we have the Highway 111 median landscape. Now I'm just thinking that's from Jefferson all the way down, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But yes, so there's an example. If you put 2.8 million aside for that, the idea there, back to Councilmember Miller's point, would be to install date palms and other type of plantings that would minimize, would be very minimal maintenance. We wouldn't want to put something in there that only made it worse for us to maintain.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, you put them in strategic locations, as Mike can tell you. I mean, right on a corner, maybe if you want to put some color, you put flowers that on the corner. The rest of it's simple to maintain and easy. Looks good. And we got the county, it's going to do their stuff too, which is going to be different.
So I'm thinking county, and then over by the marketplace, that's the other median, and then up by Jefferson.
They all are tired, but there's something we can do that I think is lower maintenance. And talking with Mike and the team, we'd like to do more, but the funds just haven't been allocated for that. But if they knew there was this resource and we could go in and just do it and make it consistent, which I think is another benefit.
Mhm.
If you drove from Jefferson to Golf Center Parkway on 111 or all the way to Indio Boulevard and connected and said, wow, that is a very nicely landscaped street. Right now, it's just inconsistent. And that's just, there are actually some medians that have nothing in them. And don't even have water in them. So we're going to have to extend water in there. That's why the cost is significant.
But I mean, the 85,000, I mean, some of these things aren't going to be done this year anyways. I mean, when you start talking about, I know we want to set the money aside, but like the street signs, I mean, it's going to take a while to be able to get those, to be able to come in, even just to get them.
Yeah.
Some of the other stuff, the gateway signage and all that other stuff, the facade, how long will we absorb all 800? I'm not against putting it there, but I think we can find 85,000 somewhere to do the museum, just finish the the roof, the electrical, and the HVAC, and be done with it. So it's all done at one time.
Yeah.
Same contractor, same person doing it, get a good price, be done with it instead of piece it together.
Yeah, they're probably 3 different projects, but they all be done at the same time, just get it
Right.
done.
And that's why I said it's done and finished so that their minimum downtime and we can invest.
Appears to be consensus on all of the museum contribution.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find it.
The access control, this would, right now, the current admin building, the chief can better speak to it, but we're building the new public safety campus. They don't jive. And so this would allow that mutual access to carrying 2 cards between the facilities. Am I accurately describing that? There is some cost there from some rewiring and so forth. High priority or not.
I'm just kind of chuckling because we got the same code in the back. I'll tell you what, I'll give you the $85,000 if you change the code in the back of this room here. So
We didn't want you to forget it. Yeah, that was that.
but no, it does make sense. I mean, it's something I think we should do. I mean, we're talking $85,000 for public safety.
Yeah, that's something we have to do. It's
Yep.
a public safety thing. And when it comes to public safety, sometimes folks look at the budget and that's too much money until you need them, right? And so that's something that we have to take care of. So I would be supportive of that. I don't know where we would find the dollars for it. But I know that, or I don't know. It just looks like some of these prices are very conservative. And so I think
there's room there.
Yeah, we'll find some room.
I think one place, and again, we would just work to it, is those acquisitions. And again, rather than saying those publicly, what exact properties they are and so forth. But if you had allocated, again, 2.8 million, for example, for those efforts, then that leaves some money for some of these decisions.
And any money that's left over, can we all agree that it goes into reserves?
Oh yeah, we put
Anything that we don't have out of that, say we put the 24 million, say 22 million, and we spend 20 of it because we get better costs or everything. It goes into the reserves. We just dump it in there.
We won't use it elsewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll just say
Certainly.
Unless you come back and ask.
But
That
we're
way
gonna come
we
back
know
in
it
6 months,
goes in.
right? So
Yeah.
we'll know.
Well, there's some other projects that didn't hit the list that you'd like to pull above the line. I probably didn't highlight that, though you see it on the spreadsheet, roughly $22 million. You see where the red line stops based on the prioritization. I think some of the other items that the city department directors indicated that, frankly, I do recommend is the entryway off of Jefferson as you land onto Indio Boulevard.
Pretty rough.
We actually have quite a bit of drainage going on there. And so we have some sloughing out. There's a maintenance issue there. It's not attractive. It is a main entry into the community. It is a long median. It won't be cheap. But with some date palms and some, relatively low maintenance landscaping, it can be very nice and attractive. I think we'd estimated $750,000 for that entry median. It's not currently above the line.
Is that where we had that art piece that?
It's where it's
took
the
down?
other part where you come up and you turn. If you were dead into Jefferson, you turn left like you're going to the freeway.
Right.
All that medium part that's up there that's not done, going towards the bridge.
Ah, okay.
That is
Okay.
the area that I said it
Got
doesn't
it.
look like it's
Yeah.
finished because we have all that
Right.
beautiful stuff.
You got it. Yeah.
There is some miscellaneous landscape improvements. We had the artwork there that lost. Now we've just
Yeah.
kind of smoothed that down. Something else could go in there. Perhaps we could talk to our art team, but there are funds for that. But I would just think that would be a very attractive cleanup of the entry.
I agree.
Good
But where
point.
do we
Yeah.
get the money?
So it's one of these other projects to discuss, or reducing the allocation to some, or perhaps the downtown gateway signage. We could wait on that until mid-year and see where the downtown's going. And
I actually would reverse that. I would wait on that entry point. We do have some potential developers coming into the area, and maybe wait until then.
on the Jefferson Gateway.
I don't know. That's people just coming right off of our
Everybody,
city.
including
Yeah.
everybody from La Quinta and
Yep.
everywhere else.
They've been, yeah, true, but they've been coming through there for a long time. So
So maybe that's the first thing, maybe we have our priority and that's the first thing that we look at if we have some extra dollars. Because now that I know where it is, I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough. It looks rough and unfinished and And
No, it's definitely a point of interest, but it's just where do we find the funding for that?
Well, there are a couple of those locations, looking at the Oasis stretch. Where's the southern one? Again, the acquisitions, the reserve,
I would do
Yeah,
Jefferson, right, Oasis, to be honest with you, but that's just me.
No, but we have so many more homes around the Oasis area, whereas the Jefferson area is kind of out of the way for our residents.
Yeah, I just right now I'm just not focusing. I just favor it to downtown. I think we got something good going on there. However, the entry points are important.
Could we do something in the meantime, simple, like DG or something just to clean it up in the meantime until that we don't have to put all the stuff in it? It does need something. I agree with you. But, even our landscape for the bridge itself is just DG rock and big rocks.
And I understand there's no water there either. So
That's
it
what
has
I'm
to be decorative rock and DG.
Maybe we can get it a little bit cheaper. I mean, there's some things in here that we could probably find some funding from, like you got the miscellaneous medium landscape improvements, $1 million. I mean, obviously that we can eat that up pretty quickly, to be honest with you, but it doesn't mean we couldn't use part of that to do it.
Now, this good point there. I'm sure there could be some funds there. This Greenway Paseo is something the architect has discussed, but you have the new city hall building falling through this parking lot. How do we create kind of a Paseo Greenway? It would be attractive and nice, but not necessarily needed. That's one option.
Well, as we're doing more, we could also come back and do that.
Yeah, so
I agree. Right now, I don't think we need a greenway to our city hall here, but that's just my personal opinion.
not to this one. Yeah.
Not yet.
But maybe that's a consideration. If we held
Yeah.
those two projects in advance, maybe we certainly this Greenway would be some time frame.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
me
think
too.
the Greenway would be.
I don't think the Greenway was a priority that the city staff had identified, but the council did. So perhaps that one in Jefferson can be left for maybe a mid-year discussion. However, if we're going to do Jefferson, that would be one I think we'd want to.
Start on.
I think we
Yeah,
do Jefferson, keep with the greenway belt and leave the $250,000 and whatever else we can get, we can always go back and do that green belt if we save money on some of it.
Yeah.
On the project itself. There's a thought if it worked into the project itself, what may or may not be available to do then.
I agree with you on Jefferson. Though. It's too big of an entry point to us. We spent too much money on that interchange to leave it to look like it does.
Is there some consensus on
Agreed.
that? If we postpone the Greenway in favor, they'll leave about $250,000.
And I'd just leave the 250 sitting there.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
good
think
with
we
that.
need
I think it's a good
greenway.
idea.
Yeah, for now.
I think we have enough.
I would ask which one would we prioritize, the Greenway or the gateway signage to downtown?
Gateway signage.
You want to prioritize the gateway? Okay, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in discussion about what we're going to do with our city hall and library and those kind of things. So I think the Greenway will fall into that discussion, a later discussion anyway. So
Yep.
I think that could be weighted, but those entry points do make a big difference,
Yeah. Does.
Well, I've taken some good notes here. If there are a couple of other projects that, this idea of the financing for the public safety facility or the other city facilities, should we put some money towards that to reduce the debt financing or take advantage of still historically low rates and just borrow what we need?
I say we borrow what we need.
Exactly.
That's the idea behind it.
Yep.
It's, we asked our residents to invest back in the community, and I think that's what we need to do to pay it back down $5 million out of thing. When we have so many other needs, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If rates were skyrocketing, I would say yes. But if it's going to go into our reserve or go towards our medical, where it's going to actually save the city general fund dollars, then I would say do that. But I would leave it, and I'd leave the 250,000 just to see where other stuff is, because we might get into some of these things and find out we might need that 250,000 for something else.
Yeah, and you're making me think, because there are some other items below the line list, such as a clubhouse at the golf course, which is needed at some point. But I want to remind everyone that the Measure X funding while it will be encumbered by, we have a judgment bond there. It's about 1.2 million. There'll be some debt service for the new facilities. Mr. Wassel will continue to remind us that about $4.5 million should be set aside for roads every year. Even after all that, every year, we will have a discussion with you of about $2 to $3 million for a project that keeps coming back. It's not one-time money, it's recurring money. So let's say next year, maybe we're encumbered here, but maybe next year we bring the golf course clubhouse back. It could be used, the recurring money could be used, and that's only 1 year, and then it comes back the next year. So that funding source continues for us.
And as we do more, as we get our new, our car Hondas, coming in,
More revenue.
the revenue is going to come up. If we do this right and we invest back in where people invest back in us, then the tax dollars will be more and more to come back into us anyway. So
That's certainly true.
Investing in downtown will bring more businesses, which will bring more tax dollars back into us, which we'll be able to invest back in again. So I agree.
Downtown, but also, on the next go around, focus on the sports park.
Yeah.
Second phase.
We do have those grants coming in, Clean California grant coming in. We're working on a TCC grant. And if those things materialize, I think if we work on that second phase, that's going to help us with our revenue as well with those soccer fields. And it's going to be very attractive to some new businesses and as well as support our existing businesses that are there.
And what a great use for some Measure X money over time as well. If this is a seed amount, whether TCC comes in or not, we would need more money for a phase 2. So I'm glad that revenue source is available. These are one-time monies. And as we move these forward, we ought to, as we present these for award or so forth, advise you what we think the ongoing maintenance costs would be and what its impact is. For example, phase 1 of the sports park, we're going to have to absorb a significant maintenance cost there. Certainly worth it, but we need to know and keep that in mind as we move ahead. Well, I think there's been some good consensus. I certainly just know this is a study session, so you're going to see this all again. And Councilmember Ramos would likely want to chime in on some of these. But I've got the pickleball courts for both Patton and Miles, as well as the other Miles improvements that were already above the line, all of the museum projects, the access control for the PD, and the Jefferson entry. Still probably leaves a little bit of room there for other projects that can be allocated at mid-year. And as these things move ahead, some of these are just reserves, such as the $2.5 million for phase 2 of the sports park. We will know more by mid-year, and there can be a new reallocation discussion at that time. We did talk about foregoing the Paseo for now.
Yes.
As well as the multimodal center project, which again will be a future. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned, Mayor. Kevin Snyder wrote me a nice note to remind me that we do have a fairly robust and detailed multimodal hub study that was conducted maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It is a basis that's being used by RCTC for the analysis that's underway at this time. We will need a new federal appropriation for the platform. These platforms nowadays, just so you know, are typically just kiosks. There's not the big, large train station that we all were accustomed to years and years and years ago. But there would need to be some city funds, I'm sure, to participate when that happens. That's likely 2 or 3 years away. Perfect. But Mayor, certainly if there are other projects that we didn't discuss below the line, there are some other branding opportunities. This opportunity to perhaps partner with Golden Voice and the Polo Grounds for some dust control improvements. Some of those are on public property. That's why the discussion, some are on private property.
We could look at those and see what's on public, but
I think got a lot to chew already.
Hey, I think this is
busy,
good.
Huh?
Yeah, I think to chew already.
And please don't forget that Mr. Rockwell went through it, but there are already $95 million of capital projects. So plenty to be done. But that is a very robust plan.
Yeah, and we don't know what our economy is going to look like in the future, but with this plan that we have moving forward here, we have enough to keep us busy for a couple of years and to also entertain our residents and our visitors as well. I mean, there's some really good stuff on this, and to see dog parks and some of the signage and facade improvements. We're well on our way. As we can see now, we're already a construction zone. Some parts of our city with roads and colleges being built. So I'm very pleased with what we have so far. Looking forward to coming back with this and passing it. So I have no further. If anyone has,
Thank you. My only thought is thank you to
and we don't
staff.
have to spend everything.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of it too is I think we're going to get a bump from our concerts too.
Sure.
I'm sure Golden Voice has more things in mind with that. They wouldn't have leased that with in mind to have just 3 concerts or other events. So, I think our TOT tax and other stuff is going to continue to grow too. Now that we're back into
I
being.
think the scope we have is workable. Let's put our both arms around that and move it forward. And
Steph
thank
did a
you.
great job.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have no further. I think you have plenty to work off of, and
Have fun.
We'll get it done.
so right now it's still 3:15. We have closed at 4, so we adjourn until 4 p.m.
Hey,
Yeah.
Brian.
Yes.
Brian, could you send us a finished list with the final items on there?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You.
Appreciate it.